Having mastered it, he would have access to endless energy techniques. By that time, he had become possessed of a power not inferior to the peak of the spiritual realm. And then he would return to the Divine Sword Empire and take revenge on all his enemies. He wanted them to wait for him because they didn't have long to enjoy life. After that, they show us the city of Tian again. There was a hum of the crowd and everyone was whispering. Qin noticed that the atmosphere of the upcoming competition is already felt. The event is still a few days away, and there is already nowhere to fall in the city. Then a certain carriage appears and people shouted that a representative of the Temple of the Buddha's Heart was coming. The guys talked about the fact that the Temple Maiden herself could come from the Temple of the Buddha's Heart. He hoped that he would have the opportunity to surprise her at least a glimpse. She pulled back the curtain and they show us the Temple Maiden, Leng Qianshuang. All the guys were surprised when they saw her, and the other one said that if he had managed to exchange a few words with her, he would have died of happiness altogether. Then Leng saw Qin and immediately the protagonist greeted her and added that they had not seen each other for a long time. All the guys were surprised by his words, and he remembered that in this life he had not yet met Lin. She didn't know who this person was and assumed that they might be familiar. The old woman closed the curtain because there are only guys around. It was Aunt Leng named Yu. The old lady said that they all really hope that she will be able to convince the next winner of the competition to join their temple. She already knew this and promised that she would make every effort to fulfill her father's order. She replied that only a very outstanding person could take the first place. If the winner is a guy, he will be their son-in-law. It might not be as bad as she thinks, but Len didn't want to sell himself just like that. Yu wanted to say something again, but the Temple Maiden interrupted her and said that she understood everything and wanted to visit Prince Shangnan first. The carriage still continued to drive forward along the street, and after a while, it stopped near the palace. Len started down the stairs with her aunt. Someone saw a Temple Maiden from the Temple of the Buddha's Heart. He realized that the rumors were true. In order to recruit the winner, the Buddha Heart Temple decided to sell its Temple Maiden. This was the spiritual son of the Polar Sun clan, Chu Lin. Len was surprised when she saw and realized that she had taught him a bad lesson last time, since he dared to open his dirty mouth in front of her. Chu replied that he had deliberately succumbed to her then. He thought she was just a fragile girl and that she mistook his nobility for weakness. Lan turned around and called her aunt. Chu was very angry because she ignored him. Then he saw Qin whistling to himself. Chu didn't know who it was and he called Qianshuang. The protagonist asked her if she had also come to visit Prince Sheng and added that he knew his residence like the back of his hand, and offered to accompany her. You called him a bad word, because he even got here. Chu Lin started laughing and put his hand on Qin's shoulder. He told Lin that he underestimated her, because she had just arrived in town and had already picked up some poor guy. She told him that he was making the same mistake over and over again, and she asked if she really thought that her patience was boundless. He shouted at her to attack. Qin jumped forward and told him to shut his mouth. Shu was surprised, and the protagonist lit up with a purple aura. Qin asked who he thought he was. Shu shouted that he was the spiritual son of the Polar Sun clan. Qin lit up with the aura even more, which made Chu a little surprised. A certain purple demon appeared and Qin warned him that if he offended Leng Qianshuang again, he would turn from a spiritual son into a dead son. Chu began to move away. He was very afraid and did not know who this guy was and why, being a puppy of the first spiritual kingdom, he was so terrifying to him. But then I realized that unless he, the spiritual son of the Polar Salt clan, can at least be afraid of someone, he wanted to wash away this fleeting shame. Shu shouted that out of respect for Prince Sheng, he would not kill him right in front of his residence. He ordered me to kneel down and ask for forgiveness, and he would spare him. Qin said that he was giving him a chance to strike first, and Chu created his weapon with the words that he had asked for it. He immediately rushed at him and Leng warned Qin that he owned the sacred fire of the 5th rank. But Qin only laughed. Chu hit the protagonist with a sword and was pleased with what he got. But immediately the sword literally disintegrated into fire, from which Chu Lin was very surprised. Then Qin stepped on him and went to Chu. The protagonist did not understand why he was so weak and thought that he had bought his 5th rank on the market. Chu asked him what he had done and why his sacred fire. This whole play was watched by Len and Yu. The Temple Maiden was surprised that if he so easily dealt with the owner of the sacred fire of the 5th rank, then his rank is higher than the 5th, or the element of fire is inherent in him by nature. Yu paid attention to Lang and then Qin. She noticed that he was just shaking with anger. Shu thought it was impossible. He didn't understand how a scum on the first spiritual realm like him was able to suppress his sacred fire of the 5th rank. He believed that he was using some kind of hidden cheating technique. Jang shouted that they should stop, because they were at his residence, not at the bazaar. Immediately, Chu introduced himself to him and added that he had arrived on a visit, which the Temple Maiden did, but Chen only nodded. Qin believed that this old fox must have been watching them from the very beginning, but he decided to intervene only now. The old man believed that being in the desert lands, Qin had gained a high-rank sacred fire, and he felt that on the day of their meeting with them, he made the right decision. Jen told Qin that his friend had finally arrived and asked him to follow him. The protagonist laughed happily, and Chu got angry. He growled angrily that he had fulfilled his part of etiquette and thanked him for the warm welcome and wanted to leave. He left angrily and Len called him a cretin. After that, they were sitting in the reception hall. The prince said that he had called Qin to notify him of what was coming, but Qin knew about the sacred fire competition. Jen said that's right, he wanted to talk about it. His princely court has one quota for participation and he offers it to him. Qin thanked the prince. Lang immediately asked Qin if he wanted to join her Temple of the Buddha's Heart. He replied that if he became the winner at the end of the competition, then they would return to this question, and Len understood him. Then she told Auntie and she took out the ring. She asked Prince Zheng to accept this humble offering from their temple. He thanked her for her generosity. Auntie whispered in Lang's ear that the young man was able to win the favor of Prince Zheng, and also owns a high-ranking sacred fire, so she advised to be active and build good relations with him. Len was a little embarrassed and agreed with her. She called Qin and said that she had not been to Chan City for many years, and invited him to walk with her. He replied that of course he would take a walk with her, and Jen understood everything. He said that since his girlfriend invited him, he could go, but they had to return to his residence for dinner. After all, his fiancée would personally cook him, and Qin was angry at him for telling everything. Len was also surprised and thoughtful. The head told them to finally leave, because he didn't want to take up their precious time. He understood that the Temple of the Buddha's Heart uses its temple maiden to lure talent. He didn't know why everyone was trying to apply their main advantages, but he immediately thought that his Zio was also his advantage and therefore laughed a lot. Then in the forging and casting clan, in the reception hall, Chu was sitting on the throne, and Fei told him that he did not expect him to personally come to him personally, because this is a great honor of the clan. Chu asked him if he believed that he could become the best in the upcoming Sacred Fire competition. Fei replied that he was determined. His mentor, the Taoist elder, will also arrive soon. If he and Chu support him, then no one will be able to challenge him. Chu replied that he had just met someone. He said that even though he is only at the level of the first spiritual realm, and he managed to suppress his sacred fire, Fei was surprised, because it was impossible and did not know if there was such a person in Tian. Chu created a portal where Qin's face appeared, and Chu asked him if he knew who it was. Fei recognized him and got very angry. Chu realized that he knew about him, and Fei told him that this bastard's name was Qin. Chu asked if it was the same one who killed Lai Jian and who was put on the wanted list in the Divine Sword Empire. Fei agreed. He was also tired of this upstart. Chu said that according to rumors, Qin went to the desert lands and his journey turned out to be incredibly fruitful, and now Chu realized that it turned out to be true. Fei realized that he had increased his fire there and that he would win this competition. Chu replied that he had an incredibly strong sacred fire, several ranks higher than him, and therefore he understood that he would have no rivals in the next competition. Fei shouted that in no case should he be allowed to win. Chu understood this and asked how soon his mentor would be here. Fei replied that the Taoist elder would arrive tomorrow. He was delighted and said that they would wait for him and discuss the matter thoroughly, but in the meantime he could go. Chu was still sitting on the throne and looked up and laughed, because if he could take away his sacred fire and appropriate it for himself, then the place of the future head of the Polar Sun clan was guaranteed to him, and Fei and his mentor will serve as a springboard for him. Then they show us the city again, and there was a hum of the crowd in the center, and Qin was walking with Len. Then her hand started to hiss and a summary of Qin appeared there. She realized that he was a member of the King family from the Divine Sword Empire. She called Qin and said that she had heard what had happened to his family and deeply sympathized with him. The protagonist said that she was very kind. She replied that if he needed anything, the Temple of the Buddha's Heart was ready to provide him with comprehensive assistance. Qin asked her even if it would mean for her to go to war with the Immortal Clan. She replied that the clan of immortals is very powerful, but it is better not to cross the road to their temple. He is grateful to her for her words. This is a matter of personal revenge, so he will solve it himself, but before that, he would like to enlist the support of her temple. Len was surprised and delighted, but he put his finger to her lips and replied that she understood everything anyway. Then she dusted herself off. The guy recognized Len, who was a temple maiden from the Temple of the Heart of the Buddha, and asked who was next to her. They asked him if he was a local, because the whole city is talking about this guy. This kid changes beauties every day, and he has already been seen with Princess Sayo and Weiner from the House of Dugu. They were all hotly discussing them and surrounded the couple. Immediately, Qin coughed and grabbed his girlfriend's hand that they should take a walk somewhere else. On the next street, Fat Lai was running after Mr. Wang. He asked him not to leave so immediately, and Wang asked Li if he was sure. The fat man replied that he had served the forging and casting clan without sparing himself, but they had always treated him like trash. If he does not refuse, then from now on he is ready to serve him. He approached him and whispered in his ear that he had recently obtained more than 10 new slaves. They were all from the succubus race. Van was very surprised and inspired by these girls. Fat Lie added that he personally selected each one. Van was glad, and from now on she would consider him her man. Tonight, Lee has to send all the succubi to his residence, and Lee agreed with him. But then he saw Kin and shouted that he was seeing that bastard again. Van also got angry when he saw him and noticed that the girl next to him was just a charm. Lie said that Kin was the same scoundrel who took his slave away from him, and she was also very pretty and in this aspect was in no way inferior to his new companion. Lee found out why he doesn't count with anyone in their city. Prince Zhengnan stands behind him like a mountain. It was clear to Wang why Fei didn't risk dealing with him. He wants Zhen's granddaughter. That's why he's afraid to anger him, but he doesn't care about this prince from a high bell tower. And they decided to go. Since Lee is now his man, he will not let anyone offend him. This cute couple was walking and Wang and Lai stood in front of them. The fat man said they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Kin said he remembered him and noticed that he used to be Fei's dog and now apparently decided to change the owner. From his words, Lai began to get angry and Wang said that now Fat Lai is his man and Kin stole a slave from him, and if Fei doesn't have the guts to ask him for it, then Wang will do it himself. Len was surprised that this man had so many enemies. The protagonist asked him how he intended to do it. Wang told him that first, he would return the slave he had stolen. Secondly, he will give him his charming companion, and from that day on she will be his. Len got very angry and decided to kill him for his words. Her aura also activated and Kin put his hand in front of her and asked her to be patient. He asked her to let him sort it all out. Kin asked him what if he didn't agree, and Wang replied that he would behead him. The protagonist replied that it suits him and he just wanted to stretch his joints. Wang took a stand and said that he had chosen death for his mustache. At the same time, he will show him the newly mastered technique of the initial black level. Okay, thunderstorms. Kin and Ling stood still, and the fat man just flew away. There was a strong rumble and Lin said that the palm of the thunderstorm is an incredibly powerful technique and offered to help him. The protagonist replied to her so that she would not bother to shoot, because this is just an entry-level black technique. Wang shouted that he had bought it from Fei for a huge sum. It turned up well for him. He was just looking for someone to try it on. And having created a certain ball, he shouted that he should die. He launched a thunderstorm palm at Kin. The protagonist only took a deep breath and created a huge demon, which let out a purple ray from its mouth, which wounded Wang and he fell unconscious, from which Fat Lai was very scared. Kin exhaled and told Ling that it was over. She was surprised, because Wang's cultivation level corresponds to the black spiritual realm. In addition, he used the technique of the initial black level, but was unable to repel even a single blow from Kin. The technique Kin used was also black level. Well, now, he went up to Lee and told him that it was his turn. Fatty Lai lowered his head and forgave him to spare and let him go. He is ready to give him all his possessions, but begged him not to kill him. Kin asked about the property and Lai repeated it again. Kin asked Ling if she wanted to take a look at it and she said yes. The hero kicked this dirty pig to get her to introduce them. After that, they show us the estate of Fat Lai. There were a lot of weapons inside. Kin asked him if all his possessions were here and Lai agreed. The protagonist looked at him menacingly and added that this was not enough to exchange for his life. Lee immediately began to beg him again to spare him. Because all his things are here, he has nothing else. Kin clenched his fist and replied that he would have to die. And Lai added that he also had many slaves and the protagonist ordered him to show them. Lee decided to open his secret room and pressed the button. A room opened into which there was such a disgusting smell that Len even covered herself. Kin asked him what kind of freak you have to be to keep someone in such a place. The protagonist knew that Lee was vile, but he exceeded all his expectations. Lai screamed that it wouldn't be like this anymore and Kin grabbed his clothes and called Lang after him and was forced to ask her to be patient again. Going inside, there was a large room and Lan noticed that all these slaves were in such terrible conditions. There were wounded people, women and even children. A man reached out to Lee saying that he had killed his entire family and made him a slave, so he deserved to die. He repeated it over and over again and Lee got a little scared. Len began to get angry, because she believed that such things could not be forgiven. He asked her to calm down and promised that he would never do it again. Kin picked up Lai and said that it was difficult to call him a person. They went further and drew attention to the cage. He saw the succubi and was surprised. He asked him if they were also his slaves. Lee explained that this was his latest acquisition. These succubi are first-class goods. Kin praised Lai and the fat man was glad that he was satisfied and asked him to let him go. The protagonist told him that he would not kill him and he could run away. He was very happy and thanked him. But immediately Len pierced through his chest and Kin replied that this did not mean that Len would not kill him. She pulled out her hand and the fat man's body flopped to the floor. She added that a person who torments slaves in such a way deserves nothing but death. Wiping her hand, she asked him what he was going to do with these slaves. Kin replied that they were all very unhappy people. He will ask the princely court of Zheng to dispose of their future fate. Len was pleased with his answer and found him very merciful. After a while, a lot of people arrived here and Zio ordered them to immediately release all the slaves. She thought Lee got off too easy. He should have been locked up here himself until he repaid his guilt. Qin replied that by killing one fat lie, the overall situation of slave abuse would not change much. She must remember that the main goal is the complete abolition of the system of slavery. Now he would ask her to keep land company, and he would go. And also in the evening he will not come to him for dinner. Zio began to get angry and called him a scoundrel, because she had been puffing over the kitchen stove for a long time and promised that next time she would not forgive him. Lang realized that the relationship between Zio and Qin had not yet developed into something serious. So she was glad. Immediately Zio came up to her and asked why she suddenly blushed. But Lang started to deny everything and Zio felt that there was something strange. After that, we are shown the Tian guest courtyard. Inside, Qin absorbed everything. He understood that the sacred fire competition was already on the nose, and for the development of his cultivation, he had to use every moment. After that, we are shown the Divine Spear clan. The head of the clan, Wang Teqiang, said that he did not expect him to personally come to him. He is very flattered by this. After all, the guest illuminated his modest home with his visit. It was Liu Zheling from the Ruthless Sword School. Liu said that enough of the empty chatter and that it was worth getting straight to the point. He asked if he could provide a worthy candidate to participate in the sacred fire competition. Van didn't know what to say. Liu thought so and noticed that his clan was becoming worthless and worthless. The Polar Sun clan has already recruited a disciple from the Forging and Casting clan. The Jasper Fei clan has bet on the Moonlight School. It is still unclear about the Buddha Heart Temple. He decided to give their clan the sacred fire of the 6th rank. Van was very happy about this gift. Liu said that he calls him the soul-devouring flame. He hoped that his fire and support would make their candidate a competitive fighter. The head of the clan fell to his knees and thanked him from the bottom of his heart. At that moment, Van ran into the house and called his father. He told him to stand up for him. Liu remained silent and Wang asked his father who it was. Wang Teqiang accused him of squealing like a scalded pig and introduced Liu from the Ruthless Sword School. Wang was surprised by this information and leaving Liu said that he could only hope that they would not disappoint him. Then Wang turned his attention to the fire and asked what it was. The father hid his son and explained that it was a sacred fire of the 6th rank. Wang was very surprised by this and his father added that the Ruthless Sword School decided to bet on their clan. Wang must immediately assimilate this fire in order to win the sacred fire competition. Wang was literally drooling from the fact that he now has the sacred fire and therefore laughed a lot. He understood that he could not defeat Qin with the help of the Palm of Thunderstorm, but having mastered the sacred fire of the 6th rank and multiplied it with his innate fighting talent, he would reach a completely different level and after that his days would be numbered. Immediately, the father decided to ask his son who had tapped him in the face. Van absorbed the fire and replied that it didn't matter anymore and that he was leaving. When he left, he was very brave. Wang the elder would never have thought that his son would one day have a sacred fire, and therefore thought that his divine sword clan would do well. At this time, Fei's mentor finally returned to Tian City and he was already standing and waiting for him. Immediately, the carriage descended and his disciple greeted him warmly. The mentor told him to come in, because first they would pay a visit to Prince Zheng and Fei obeyed him. Then the mentor said that he came back for 2 things. Firstly, he needs to be matched with Zio. And secondly, he needs to be helped to win the sacred fire competition. Fei decided to tell him something. It was about Qin from the Divine Sword Empire, and immediately the old man drew attention to this name. After a while, Fei told him everything, and the old man understood him. He realized that the rumors were true, and Qin had gained a lot during his stay in the desert lands. He has a sacred fire as well as a divine weapon, and it turned out to be the glow that he had observed on the way here. Fei added that Qin possesses a high-rank sacred fire. Even Chu Lin is not his rival. Therefore, he believed that in no case should he be allowed to take part in the sacred fire competition, to which the old man replied that he could participate, because he had methods to prevent him from winning. This is his sacred fire of the 6th rank, the flame of the chilling underworld. He has been cultivating it for many years, and now he is only a little short of the 7th rank. With the help of his secret technique, he will learn it in the shortest possible time. Fei was surprised when he heard about the fire of the 7th rank. The old man added that the sacred fire above the 6th rank is extremely rare. Therefore, he assumes that the sacred fire of Qin is also of the 6th rank. Hence, with the help of his chilling underworld flame, his victory is almost guaranteed. He absorbed this flame and thanked him from the bottom of his heart and assured him that he would not disappoint him. He felt that Qin now has nothing in which he would surpass him. In the upcoming sacred fire competition, he will destroy it. After that, we are shown the residence of Prince Shen Nan again. Zio asked Grandpa to do something, because that clingy Fei will be here any minute. But the old man threw everything on the protagonist, from which he even spat out his tea. He did not understand how much he could do at all. Zio asked him to prove himself and make it clear to Faye that he would not climb to her anymore. Immediately, Faye and his mentor entered the temple, who greeted Jen. Kin felt that something had become of Faye's sacred fire. Just recently, he had the fire of the 5th Ranag, and here it is already the 6th and, moreover, quite close to the 7th. He realized that the elder did not waste time in vain and helped him. Faye greeted Zio and added that the mentor had come here to woo him. Zio pulled Kin up and replied that she already had a fiancé. She doesn't really know him, and as a child they just played and that's it. She asked him not to come here with this offer anymore. The old man realized that this was the Kinyu from the Divine Sword Empire, and the protagonist agreed. The old man viciously asked him if Lai Qin really thought he was worthy of Zio, because he was just a foreigner, a member of a defeated family. 1:41. The old man said that Huang Fei was his personal disciple and the future winner of the Sacred Fire competition. He has a bright future ahead of him and immediately wondered who he was. Zio shouted that Qin also has a sacred fire and he will win the competition. The protagonist realized that this was the reaction the old man was waiting for. He wondered if the old man had deliberately provoked Zio to say this, and he also hoped to undermine his morale. There is no doubt that they expect to kill him during the competition. Qin wanted to see who was who. The old man replied that if Qin wins, then Huang Fei will certainly not be his equal. But he was wondering what would happen if he lost. Zio shouted that it was impossible. Huan asked her if he became the winner of the competition, she would immediately agree to marry him without any delay, since she is so confident in him. Then she will not refuse such conditions. Zio of course fell for their words and agreed. She turned to Qin and said that he must win. Otherwise she would end up in the clutches of this monster. The old man, leaving, was glad of this agreement and added that he would look forward to the day of the competition, and that soon everything would fall into place. This company left and Zio was angry. They enraged her. She asked Qin to teach him a nice lesson during the competition. The protagonist noticed that Huang Fei was no longer the same as before. Before that he had a fire of the 5th rank, but today it is a strong 6th rank, close to the 7th. Zio replied that she didn't care about it, but immediately realized that he already had the 7th rank and was very surprised. Qin added that now he has no confidence that he will be able to defeat him and therefore she will soon become Huang Fei's wife. Zio wilted a lot and thought it was over. She didn't understand why she was acting so impulsively, and at this time Qin was laughing softly. Immediately, the emperor began to approach, who also laughed and asked Qin not to mock her. He knows that it makes no difference to him what rank his opponent's sacred fire is. At least the 6th, at least the 7th. Zio turned and looked at Qin with tear-stained eyes. The protagonist replied that he didn't know for sure and scratched his head. After that, it was deep night. Qin sat in his room and cultivated. He absorbed the lotus energy and meditated. Then he opened his eyes and a red phoenix appeared to us along with a huge purple demon. He folded his hands, which had different lights in them and turned out to be a kind of sphere. Of course, Qin decided to devour her and literally flew off the ground. A moment later, he landed on the floor and caught his breath, rejoicing that he had finally reached the 3rd spiritual realm. Tomorrow will be a fateful day. Then he fell on the sofa and immediately fell asleep. The next morning, we are shown the venue of the Sacred Fire competition. The arena was already prepared, where the audience was sitting and shouting at the top of their lungs with expectation. The emperor was glad that the competition would finally begin, and the girl next to him replied that she hoped that Qin would win a landslide victory. After the fire lit up around the tower and they show us an old man who was sitting on the throne. He wasn't particularly happy. At the same time, the audience was also glad that the competition would begin soon, but some were sorry that they did not have a sacred fire. Many wars went to the arena, and Huan noticed that a bunch of pathetic and talented cockroaches naively believing that they have the slightest chance of winning. Their destinies are predetermined, and they are born to crawl. Then we are shown that Wang noticed Huang and noticed that judging by his confident appearance, he expects to win the competition. Huang turned around and asked Wang what he was doing here. After all, there will be a sacred fire competition here, and he has no fire. And so Huan assumed that he had come to see. Wang replied that he would soon find out about his sacred fire himself. They were already ready to fight each other right there and glared at each other. Then Qin stamped loudly and immediately the two of them paid attention to him. Huang told Wang that their mutual dislike could wait, but they have a common enemy. Qin Yu and Wang agreed with him. The protagonist considered them fools and immediately greeted them. He hoped that the two of them would be able to prove themselves with dignity and not disgrace themselves too much. Van got very angry and shouted at him to stop showing off, because he wouldn't live to see the end of the day. Wang was also angry. He was very infuriated by his smirk. He wanted to see if he would grin before he died. People were fully preparing for the competition. A certain girl noted that this year talents from all over the district gathered to participate in the competition. The participants on behalf of the 4 great sects are also good, but the Qin will stand out against the background of all. Immediately, the girl with pink hair noticed Ken and was surprised. About, she jumped back and began to hover on her umbrella. She carefully descended beside Ken and asked him if it was him. It was Lai Qingyao. The protagonist approached her and said that since 3 years ago she went to develop her cultivation in the Jasper Fairy clan, they had never seen her. She has blossomed so much during this time, turned into a graceful girl. Qingyao also noticed that Ken had also changed a lot. She hadn't expected to meet him at the Sacred Fire competition. The protagonist replied that he could not miss such an event. Li added that she heard what happened to the protagonist's family. The Qin family has done so much for the benefit of the Holy Sword Empire. She didn't think her father and sister would be like this. But before she could finish, the protagonist put his hand on her head. He asked her not to worry. It's just between me and them. It's not her fault. Then the girl in blue thought. She realized that this was the same Qin who killed Lai Jian. He has been growing up with her ward since childhood. She thought that if Qin became the winner of the competition, then she might succeed. But before she could finish, we were shown people who asked who this kid was and why the girl from the Jasper Fairy clan was so nice to him. Another guy noticed that Qin is the main ladies' man of the city. He is ready to bet anything. Today they will see at least 3 beauties in the company. Immediately, Wenner began to approach, who said that no matter how she met him, there was always some beauty next to him. The guy asked others to look, because this is the second one. Qin replied not to exaggerate and they both blushed. Immediately, Qingyao picked up the umbrella and told him that it was time for her to leave in an instant. She rose into the air. She wished him good luck in the competition when she started flying away. He asked her not to worry, because today he would not miss the victory. Qingyao landed near the blue girl and she addressed her. If this Qin wins the competition, their clan will only have to rely on her. Immediately, all the people began to disperse and said that she was here. Qin was surprised when he saw a beautiful girl in front of him. She was from Chu Hanni's Moonlight School. The guy said that according to the head of the Moonlight School, she is their best nugget in the last 100 years. She is only 16, but she is already at the 5th level of the spiritual realm and has a sacred fire of the 6th rank. The man was surprised when he realized who she was, and the girl next to her added that she went into the shutter for 3 whole years. She had seen her before, then she was a little snotty girl, and today she recognizes her again. Hanni walked straight to Qin, which even surprised him. He smiled at her and Wang and Huang got very angry, because they didn't understand why even she was coming to him. While passing Miam, she told Qin that her fate was connected with the Qin family. They will certainly meet again. But she immediately warned that if their meeting took place in this battle arena, she would not spare his life. Qin thought she was funny. After a while, everyone was standing in the arena and discussing things among themselves. He noticed the girls who greeted each other. Immediately he noticed that she had horns and even a tail. She was glad to meet you. Then she walked up to Qin and greeted him, and he greeted her back. Weiner was surprised how he knew how many people. In her previous life, she was the winner of the competition. Her past is shrouded in mystery. She calls herself a free cultivator. In her previous life, she won by defeating all her rivals. Apparently, she has already reached the 8th stage of the spiritual realm, and her sacred fire is not lower than the 8th rank. The strangest thing is that after the victory, no one saw her anymore. He wanted to find out who she was in this life. Then the old man shouted that they would start soon, and immediately he and the general went down to them. The emperor ordered everyone to catch the silence and immediately continued. Today will be a grand event for the Tian Empire. The winner of the Sacred Fire competition will be revealed. He wished all the participants good luck. Then he asked the representatives of the 4 great sects to come down. Immediately, they all descended into the arena and folded their hands to create a kind of crystal, which transformed into a huge ruby. Huang realized that it was a heavenly stone of sacred fire. Wang noticed that the heavenly sacred fire stone was the most mysterious item in the entire Tian Empire. They say that he is the same age as heaven and earth. Even being near him helps to concentrate your sacred fire. And someone even manages to raise the rank of their sacred fire thanks to him. Therefore, because its value is incredibly high, it belongs to all 4 great sects. All the people were surprised, but not Qin, because such a small stone causes them so much awe. He wondered what would happen to them if they found out that there is a whole mountain of this stone in the desert lands, and this is just a fragment of it. The girl said that surely everyone present knows that the heavenly stone of sacred fire is in front of them. For any owner of the sacred fire, this is a real shrine. All 4 great sects have the right to own it. They pass it around every 3 months, but if the winner of the Sacred Fire competition joins one of the sects, then this sect will own the stone alone for the next year. Immediately everyone screamed and a strong fire started. This girl counted on Qin very much and even blushed near him. A guy came forward and added that the rules of the Sacred Fire competition are very simple. Just 3 rounds. In the first round, the participants will duel. The winners will advance to the second round. First, he will ask everyone to draw lots and immediately created a lot of pieces of paper that hovered above the ground. Everyone lined up and pulled out the papers one by one. When it was Kin's turn, he told him, the spiritual son of the Polar Sun clan, they met again. Since he is responsible for the lot, he asked him nothing against him, he did not cheat. He told him not to look down on him and treat him respectfully. Kin laughed, and when he took the piece of paper, he added that even if he cheated, he would not benefit much from it. The guy got angry and said he would see how many rounds Kin would last.